Michael is the designer of all the Progress Bar posters so far. So maybe if you can talk about how you started working on the posters.
Sure.
Or
you say posters, but I prefer the term visual strategy.
Sorry.
Which is like, that's the common parlance. We don't deal in physical objects anymore. We deal in non-physical concepts. So I was basically I'm a graphic designer. I work freelance. I make a living by doing graphic design for different people who pay me money, and one of these lovely people is Progress Bar, and I basically Progress Bar came like tonight. I mean, I've done like a bunch of work, but like I'm going to like focus today on the visual aspect of Progress Bar, which is it sort of started organically, I think, like towards the end of 2014, start of 2015, and it's sort of become its own thing, and I think it's getting into a sort of nice groove at the moment. Basically, it started, I got an email from Juha, who I knew previously from, I was working for a while at Metahaven, where they had like a working relationship on a few different exhibitions, and on a party here called Anonymous. And we kind of got in touch through that, and he just started working at Lighthouse, and basically he was saying that they had a monthly talk at Lighthouse called Monthly Talk, and he tried to get people to come to it who he'd like met in Brighton, having just moved there, and they were like, no. So it was like, okay, like let's sort of, think about like, I mean, they're interesting talks. There's, it should be like more sort of like convivial, and we got talking, and we kind of started talking a bit about, sort of like the original metaphor that we used was we wanted something that was, the same relationship that a club has to a concert venue or an opera house. Like we wanted something with the same relationship to an art gallery. So something that's sort of like between high and low, but like not middlebrow. So like, like the name Progress Bar came, and it's like obviously like it's a bar and progress and sort of like enlightenment sense, and basically started the identity based on taking like literal progress bars. We had like this ridiculously long logo that's designed to be like impossible to use by anybody else, thereby like locking them in. Like they can't use another designer because like, yeah. And so it was kind of the first few posters. These are all for Lighthouse. The initial rules that we set up was like we have like a frame and anything can happen within it. The first one was like great, and the second one, although it was like kind of beautiful, was like it's like it has like some interesting references, and it like if you look at the bottom, it has like a sort of sly reference to Mount Grove, which is a thing that I've been working on. But it took us like a while to find our feet, and it started around like the long progress bar, which is like September 2015.
So what was, when you were first asked to help do these visual accompaniments, I don't know what you called them, for Progress Bar, what was the idea, like what was it that you could do that they wouldn't have gone to another graphic designer to do? Because when we look at these, there's obviously something which isn't just like a
Sorry, I was being like super narcissistic. That like they could like very happily like go to another designer and show
Oh,
it'd be great. But like
as in like what's different about your work specifically? Or like the artist.
I'm not sure how to answer that question without being like really disgusting.
Okay, don't answer them.
But no, I mean like I don't think it's like something that's like unique to me particularly, but I tend to be like really uncompromising, but like unconsciously. So like my background is like in terms of like studying and stuff like that is like in a really sort of like super serious Basel school, like like Univer on a grid type thing, like really strict. And like I studied information design for the first 2 years I was in college, and that's kind of my background. But like I kind of got really I started like having like issues with it like after a couple of years and sort of like went off on a tangent a bit. But like I don't have like a master plan particularly. Like I mean like for a long time like I was sort of like associated with like I think like very sort of like overtly political stuff. Like immediately after I graduated, like I was working on a project with a few friends called the Territorial Support Group, which was anonymous and like has its own sort of like base in like London in 2011. But I mean, certainly with Progress Bar, it's become kind of like this sort of thing where I can like throw a lot of stuff from my own life into it and like my own anxieties. Like for example, with the long Progress Bar, this is the first time that like we used a quote from a text performance essay that a close friend of mine in Berlin wrote by Ashkan Sapavan. It's called Everything I Know About Techno-Capitalism I Learned at Berghain. And it has this sort of like freewheeling vibe to it. And I just sort of like took the text because like I enjoyed the sort of aesthetic of it. And it seemed to sort of fit with the overall thing that we were going for in the Long Progress Bar. And then also like we have like a reference to the Temple of Psychic Youth.
We were speaking earlier because there's quite a lot of them with very like you parts in them. So like on one of them they have the medication that you or the chemicals that you were taking in that entered your bodies in a whole year.
We're just about to get to that one.
Okay, so
I mean this is also one. I mean like this one was actually created by and like one and like it like one of the themes was ASMR, and I think like this image will mean like it will connect instantly with anybody who listens to ASMR on YouTube because it's like the most popular ASMR video. It's from Maria, Gentle Whispering, and yeah, it's just sort of like, I mean, with this one, it's like, it's not very complex design-wise, it's just about sort of like taking an image and like throwing it out. But then we sort of like switched to like Amsterdam. And I think the sort of like the switch to Amsterdam was like an opportunity to sort of, I don't want to say like refine, because that makes it, but yeah, refine. To just sort of like switch things up slightly. With this first poster, this is the one on the left that we used. This is the one on the right that I was thinking of proposing up until the last minute. 2015 was a sort of complicated and fucked up year in a lot of ways, but it was also really great. So I just sort of listed various substances that had passed into my body and just sort of like interspersed it with the lineup. And I think that this is so yeah, you've got like 2CB and Truvada and ceftriaxone, which had an allergic reaction to, Valium, which is great, fentanyl, which is even better. I did have fentanyl for like a very legitimate reason because I had gallstones and I thought I was dying, but I wasn't. Yeah.
But so when we were talking about it, we were talking about like the authorship of it and how like putting yourself into your work, I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of it's kind of weird talking about like graphic authorship. Like in a way, it's like a really sort of like done subject in like design discourse and stuff like that. I think it's I don't sort of set out to be like super autobiographical with like everything that I do, but it sort of ends up a bit like that. Like, for example, like, I just sort of like do stuff with friends. Like, I think that maybe it's because like the way that I work is like just in terms of like, like I work off this laptop at the moment in my room. I don't really have like a studio. I don't have like employees or like interns and things like that. So it's like it just sort of like feels natural that like, you should like have this way of working. Maybe that's like a very complicated way of saying that I'm grossly unprofessional and frequently late.
No, it sounds like you use the resources available to you, and those chemicals were your resources.
Yeah, and like I like using text as a sort of strategy, and like we kind of do that in like the second season of Progress Bar, and like with I think that compared to the Brighton Progress Bar things, the first series of Progress Bar in Amsterdam was like there's no sort of like particular overarching themes to the night. So like every month, like it's like anything is possible, and like we can just do whatever, and sort of like starting from zero. Like the only consistent elements, so the type in the top left-hand corner, and aside from that, everything is up for discussion. And so this is the full run from the first season. And there's some digital skin in the last one by Kate Cooper, because it's important to credit. Maybe she.
Can you take one of those and then tell us, Semi, what the process was of like what you were trying to communicate, or what the visuals kind of represent for Progress Bar, or how they kind of relate, if they relate?
Shit. I actually think that these are like, the whole run was like super intuitive, and they're sort of exercises in form and stuff like that. Like, there's like an informal sort of system. Like the second one, for example, we didn't do a poster as such. We did a flyer and we did a video, which is like a sort of new thing. But at the time, like I was reading Satin Island by Tom McCarthy, which is like buffering is like a really big theme in this novel, and I was kind of taken by it. And buffering is a kind of loading, and like I think that in every case, like it's sort of playing with the idea of like progress and bars and things like that. And like the last one is like to do with rendering and digital flash and stuff like that, and it kind of feeds back into, because at the time I was working on Kate's catalogue for her show at KW a couple of years ago. And
can you quickly say who Kate is?
Kate Cooper is an artist, and she is associated with, she's one of the co-directors of Italia Southeast in London, and she's in Amsterdam now. And these are like some more from back in Brighton. This one, the ones in Brighton are like a bit more thematic, because that's how like English people. And this is the film forum. So obviously it's about cinema, which means that I was really taken by the whole. Cinema means 35mm film, which I don't think is really relevant. So it's, everything is like digital now. So like, do a like poster that's like to do with film and have hard drives on it, because that's the reality of film now. And we should make new cliches than like the game ones.
Yeah, I don't.
And yeah, these ones are like kind of obvious in a really weird way.
Well, I was gonna say how, like in a lot of them, you're kind of self-aware, or not self-aware, but you like the medium, or like the fact that it's graphic design becomes, or like the process of it becomes part of the visual, if that makes sense, in the sense that it's kind of like the buffering or the progress bar is loading. It's does that?
Do you mean like in the sense that it's sort of like meta-referential about like the whole process of graphic design itself? Maybe. I don't know. I didn't think about that far ahead, but I mean, I'm sort of like, I mean, I don't know how to put it. Like, I mean, graphic design as a medium is like that's basically the only reason it's like interesting and fun to work in, is because you're basically constructing reality in like this tiny, like insignificant way, and so like. For me, it's like really important to like be as weird as possible, like in some like misguided, like, hey, everything is really weird. Like posters aren't normal, like sort of bad acid trip kind of way, maybe.
When are we getting on to the season 2?
We can like zap through. Like this is I mean this is like the games edition, and so we did like a Xbox box and this sort of crazy mashup of a bunch of different first-person games, because like I was kind of taken by this first-person perspective. 3 posters. I'll rush through the second long progress bar. This time, like I commissioned Ashkan to come up with a few different slogans, like referencing like the previous year and like being more formal with it, and so like we came up with this, and then we got like season 2, and
things changed.
And things changed like a bit, I guess, in the sense that they got more. There's like it's like 2-step program: be provocative, be organized, and like we nailed the first one. Like, I think in terms of being provocative, maybe I hope, and then like now it's like be organized, and. Basically, like one problem that we came up against in terms of capacity and stuff like that was, like, you know, like when the sort of boundary conditions that we set up for the like whole of progress bar were like really open, like literally anything was possible, and because like we were working from, we were working on like each show like individually. Or rather I was, it becomes, like every month sort of starting from 0, and like it's not sort of like building towards anything, and like with the second season, like we have like an opportunity to be a bit broader with it, and, setting up, some, basically like design should be like setting up a system and having fun with it, and I'm having fun with it. It's like really fun. Basically, the boundary conditions for like the season is to take the lineup and the date, project it into the future, and basically use them as characters in a kind of science fiction story that lasts like a tiny bit of time. Like a really super short science fiction story, and obviously, like I like using writing as a thing in graphic, as a tool in design, like more so than typography. I think almost maybe, and so. Yeah,
well, I was going to say these kind of stories or narratives that you're telling. What are they? Like, what are the ideas on them? Because obviously on these ones you're kind of touching upon themes or ideas which are relevant to a lot of the things that we've spoken about at Progress Bar before. So like we were saying, sort of ADE and how it's quite, I don't know how to politely put it, but distant from artists.
Do you mean in the sense of like, it's like in the sense that it's an opportunity to sort of speculate on the present using the future as a lens?
Yeah, kind of. Or in the sense that it's also like an imagination of... Well, they're kind of...
Like a nightmare version of reality.
It's like a fantasy, right? In the sense of like it's an idea of the future, but it's kind of an imagination.
Yeah, like sort of near present, it's like speculative fiction.
But it's like the universal basic income. It's like touching on things which.
Yeah, totally. I mean, like, so like the first one is universal basic income. The second one is very pointedly referring to fabric getting shut down, and wait, is that?
Yeah.
Sorry, it just like looks like the horizontal lines are like way thicker than the vertical ones because I'm looking at it from this angle. I'm like, now I'm really worried that I fucked it up. No, it's fine. Okay, sorry. Close enough. And yeah, so basically, I mean the you know it's not limited to. I mean, like I don't want it to be like really sort of like heavy-handed in talking about, you know, like really sort of like topical things, but you know, like there's no reason why it can't be. Mm-hmm. Like, and I think that, yeah, like, you know, sort of referring to the present and things that are going on is, you know, and just like referring to everyday life in design is kind of fun.
Yeah. It's also, if you compare it to, if you were to compare it to other events and how they kind of do what they do with their visuals.
Oh yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Like which other ones? I mean, that when we started doing Progress Bar, like we had like Juha and I came up with a maxim, which is, what would Berghain do? And like I was really in that mode, but like I'm like much more cynical now. I think maybe.
Do you think this is what Berghain would do?
I have a secret dream, which is like I would love to be asked to do a Berghain flyer, but no. Yeah. It was a context of the gallery or museum. I did say that before. Should I reiterate it?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, obviously, like, Progress Bar is kind of, like, in this sort of, like, middle ground, right? And so it's, like, different. It's more sort of, like, I don't know. Yeah. Sorry, yeah. Not to rag on Berghain or anything like that.
What I was kind of half saying is, so most people use their visuals as this kind of communication tool to tell people what is going on. About their organisation and who is playing. So I guess you get all of those in here, but you just do it in a very different way to what most people
it's like it's like maybe like a lot more. It's a lot flowerier. It's a lot spikier. I guess than just sort of like whacking the names on in a super big font and hoping that people come. I mean, I think, you know, it's maybe a sort of personal flogging host that, you know, it's like, design should be complicated. Design shouldn't make people's lives easier. It should make it harder.
Well, I was about to say it kind of challenges you because, I don't know, when you read it, you can't just pick up on the main words because you kind of have to take it all in and then be like, oh, this is the future. There's something wrong with this.
Yeah, and like my hope is that people do that, like, rather than just ignoring it completely. But like, I mean, like again, like I mean, sort of like doing something that's. I mean, for me, it's like important to do something that's out of the ordinary, in some way or another, because otherwise it gets really tedious. And yeah, I mean, these are like more sort of mock-ups for future editions. We also, I mean, we sort of like were having fun with. I mean, these are at the last minute, like we decided to make it about fabric, but I was also thinking about doing it about the currency flash crash, which completely contradicts what I just said about not being like anchored to current events, but yeah, we've also been doing like hors série editions of.
Can you explain that?
Like hors série. Hors série is like it's a French term for like when a magazine does a special edition. Basically, it's like, and hors série is a nicer term than special edition, but because like we have like this model and we can just kind of have fun with it. I decided that I would like overproduce and start producing like tons of different scenarios that sort of like loosely allude to different goings on. This one, for example, is sort of like Turkey-ish. The middle one is just weird, and it's like a special birthday different for Gideon. And I was just thinking about New Day by Round 2, which caused that one. And then Condonnez-vous la vie citron, marque de lemonade, which is a very extreme multilingual. Sorry, I do a lot of violence to language.
Violence?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
And which is like having a go at ADE for obvious reasons. Are there reasons obvious for having a go at ADE?
I think so. No, I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe.
No comment. Okay. Well, does anyone have any questions that they wanted to ask on design? Yeah.
I can just go as well. I like the sci-fi theme that you have going for this round of Fire Stars, but I also wonder if it's an extremely British topic with kind of like post-dystopian or post-apocalyptic futures. You know, like Children of Matter, 28 Days Later, this is how we live now. Like I get that kind of idea, and I see it being very British in an artistic form more so than Dutch. So how? I mean, is there import of kind of ideas that you're trying to bring here, or just changing that, or is it just circumstance?
I don't know. It's. Did everybody hear the question? Yeah.
Can you repeat it?
So the question was, I think, like, is the sort of science fiction thing, which maybe has like dystopian overtones, is that like a British invasion thing, more so than the Netherlands? I'm not sure that it is. I mean, at least without putting too fine a point with it, like I'm not very good at thinking about my work in terms of like national things, because like, I grew up partly in France, I guess, and like I stopped living in the UK like several years ago, and I'm trying to like deprogram that. It's difficult as it is.
But has it probably
maybe it
been
is.
one of those things that you've picked up, or as in like the books that you've read, or like the films that you've seen? Is that one of the things? Maybe because I
maybe
think
I mean like they're like kind of part of like the cultural imaginary, and I don't know, but like I don't think it. Like I definitely like don't want it to be like this sort of dystopian future thing. Like I think it should be a bit more oblique than that. I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, like I continually refer to Children of Men as like a like reference point. Like we were having a meeting earlier, and like that came up. Like it's like, you know, Kuala Lumpur, San Francisco, New York. The world has collapsed. Only progress bar soldiers on. Like this kind of thing. It's fun. But yeah, the only way I can answer your question is like maybe. I don't know, but I don't.
But maybe that's just part of your personality.
Maybe.
Or is it like, yeah, you were saying quite early that you were quite cynical.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. I don't know. Maybe I'm less cynical than I was previously. Like, I mean, my general like outlook is like radically apocalyptic, because I think that actually we are living through the apocalypse. So maybe that's why it's a bit like that. I genuinely don't think, like, I mean, the various like niceties that we've come to, like, I'm not going to have a pension. I don't know how I'm going to stay alive 1 year from now, maybe 2 years. I don't know what I'm going to do past the age of 50. I don't know what like sea levels. I know what sea levels are going to do. Generally, I'm extremely pessimistic about the future, but you know, like, so maybe I just like want to have fun with it while we still can. Sorry, that's really nihilistic. It's not nihilistic. It's just like really depressing. Maybe.
No, it's truthful.
Yeah. It's very lifelike.
It's fine.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.